You know that one person who acts like they've got a PhD in everything? Politics, space travel, cryptocurrency, ancient history, and even how to fix your Wi-Fi by turning it off and on again? Yeah, we all know that guy. Adam Grant would say that person's confidence is doing a full marathon, while their actual knowledge is still tying its shoelaces. That's what the power of knowing what you don't know is all about. It's not about feeling dumb, it's about realizing that nobody knows everything, and pretending you do only blocks you from getting smarter. Grant argues that the real geniuses aren't the ones who claim they've got all the answers, but the ones who are curious enough to say, I might be wrong, tell me more. That's called intellectual humility, and it's basically the cheat code for lifelong growth. Let's be honest, our brains love being right. It feels like a warm blanket of certainty. When you think you know it all, it's comforting, you can just relax and assume you've already got the world figured out. The problem is, life doesn't care about your confidence level. The universe has a funny way of reminding us that we're often wrong, and sometimes spectacularly so. The people who grow and adapt fastest aren't the ones who cling to their ideas, they're the ones who can laugh and say, wow, I totally messed that up, and then actually learn from it. Think about how toddlers learn to walk. They fall like 500 times, but they never say, walking's not for me. They just get back up and try again. Adults, on the other hand, get embarrassed about being wrong, so we stop asking questions, stop experimenting, and start defending our old beliefs like they're sacred scrolls. Grant points out the irony that people who know less often think they know more. Psychologists call this the Dunning-Kruger effect, but let's call it what it really is. The I googled it once, so I'm basically an expert syndrome. We've all seen it. It's that person on social media lecturing doctors about medicine after reading one meme. The Dunning-Kruger effect is like walking into the gym for the first time, doing 3 push-ups, and then applying to be a personal trainer. The less we know, the more confident we tend to feel, because we don't even realize what we're missing. Meanwhile, people who actually know their stuff often second-guess themselves because they understand how much there is still to learn. It's the difference between I know everything about cars and I understand the basics, but engines are complicated and constantly evolving. One sounds impressive, the other sounds thoughtful. Guess which one you'd rather trust with your car? Now, this doesn't mean we should walk around doubting ourselves into paralysis. Confidence isn't the enemy, it's blind confidence that gets us into trouble. The sweet spot is being confident enough to act, but humble enough to rethink. Imagine you're using GPS. Confidence gets you in the car and on the road. Humility reminds you to listen when the GPS says, recalculating. You're still moving forward, just smarter about it. Grant says that real confidence isn't thinking, I'm always right. It's believing, I can handle being wrong. That mindset keeps you flexible, curious, and open to better answers. Because when you admit you don't know something, you give yourself permission to learn. Intellectual humility doesn't mean pretending you're clueless. It means understanding that knowledge is endless. Every time you learn something new, it should remind you how much more there is to discover. It's like hiking a mountain. You think you're near the top, and then you realize there's another peak ahead. That can be humbling, but it's also exciting. It means there's always more adventure. The smartest people, scientists, inventors, thinkers, aren't proud of what they know. They're obsessed with what they don't know yet. That's why they keep experimenting. Einstein once said, the more I learn, the more I realize how much I don't know. And if Einstein can admit that, the rest of us can probably chill with our overconfidence. But here's the tricky part. Our brains are wired to defend what we believe. Once we form an opinion, we build an emotional fortress around it. New information that challenges us feels like an attack, so we reject it. Grant calls this being a preacher, a prosecutor, or a politician. As preachers, we defend our beliefs. As prosecutors, we attack others' ideas. And as politicians, we seek approval for our views. What we don't do is think like scientists, people who question, test, and revise their assumptions based on evidence. Thinking like a scientist means getting excited about being wrong because it means you just got closer to the truth. Imagine if we applied that in everyday life. Fewer pointless arguments, more actual understanding. Being open to not knowing doesn't make you weak, it makes you strong. Because now you're not tied to defending outdated ideas. You're free to grow. You become that person who says, I used to think that, but I learned something new. That's not flip-flopping, that's evolving. The world's changing fast. Technology, culture, even what we eat for breakfast. Seriously, who knew kale would become famous? The people who thrive aren't the ones who dig their heels in. They're the ones who can say, maybe I don't know enough yet. Let me find out. Grant's message hits especially hard in a time when everyone feels the need to have an opinion on everything. The truth is, it's okay to say, I don't know. That's not ignorance, it's honesty. In fact, those 3 little words might be the most powerful thing you can say because they open the door to growth. The moment you admit you don't know something, you've already learned something new, that there's more to learn. And that's where real wisdom starts. So next time you catch yourself arguing on autopilot or pretending to understand something you don't, hit pause. Ask questions. Be curious. Laugh at your own mistakes. Because being wrong isn't embarrassing, it's human. The people who know the most are usually the ones who know they'll never know it all. And that's what keeps them learning, exploring, and improving. The power of knowing what you don't know isn't about feeling small. It's about realizing how big the world really is and how much potential you still have to discover. So maybe the next time someone says, "You don't know what you're talking about," just smile and say, "Exactly, and that's why I'm learning." You know that feeling when someone questions your opinion and your brain immediately goes, "Oh no you didn't?" That's your mental armor snapping into place. Adam Grant calls this the armored mind, that inner knight who jumps up to defend your beliefs like they're under siege. The problem is, instead of protecting your brain from harm, that armor actually keeps you from growing. It's like wearing a full suit of steel to a yoga class. You're technically safe, but you're not exactly flexible. Grant says we resist rethinking not because we love being wrong, no one does, but because our beliefs are tied to who we think we are. Challenge someone's ideas and it feels like you're attacking their identity. That's why conversations about politics, religion, or even pineapple on pizza can turn into medieval battles. We're not debating facts, we're defending our self-image. Our beliefs are basically the stories we tell ourselves about how the world works. Over time, those stories become part of our identity. You might say, "I'm a dog person," or "I'm an optimist," or "I'm not a morning person." And sure, that sounds innocent enough. But what happens when new evidence says your story might be wrong? Suddenly, it's not just your opinion being questioned, it's you. Your ego throws up a do not disturb sign and refuses to answer the door. We'd rather double down on being wrong than admit our mental GPS needs updating. That's the armored mind in action. Defending instead of learning, fighting instead of rethinking. Grant uses the metaphor of a knight for a reason. We treat our opinions like treasured armor, something to polish, protect, and proudly display. The thicker the armor, the safer we feel. But here's the catch. Armor doesn't just keep out attacks, it also keeps out fresh air. It traps you inside your own echo chamber, where every thought just bounces off the walls of your old ideas. The result? You stop evolving. It's like being stuck in a video game level because you refuse to admit you might need a new strategy. You can keep swinging that same rusty sword, but the dragon's not going down until you change tactics. Think about how this shows up in daily life. Ever get into an argument and halfway through realize you might be wrong, but then you keep arguing anyway because you've already committed? Yep, that's the armor talking. Or maybe a friend gives you feedback at work and instead of considering it, you instantly think, "They just don't get it." That's not logic, that's ego dressed in chainmail. We love being right because it feels safe and powerful. But every time we refuse to rethink, we trade growth for comfort. We might win the argument, but we lose the opportunity to actually learn something. The tricky part is that our brains are sneaky. They're masters at building justifications for our beliefs. We become what Grant calls preachers, prosecutors, or politicians. As preachers, we defend our sacred beliefs. As prosecutors, we attack anyone who disagrees. And as politicians, we say whatever keeps us liked. Notice what's missing? Curiosity. None of those roles leave room for rethinking. We're too busy guarding the armor to notice it's weighing us down. A better approach, Grant suggests, is to think like a scientist. Scientists don't fall in love with their hypotheses. They test them, and when the evidence changes, so do they. Imagine how freeing that would be. Not having to be right, just being committed to getting closer to the truth. Now, rethinking doesn't mean abandoning every belief you have. It's about being willing to update your mental software. Think of your mind like a smartphone. If you never install updates because you're attached to the old version, eventually your apps stop working. Same thing with your mindset. The world changes, information evolves, and if you're still running on beliefs from 2010, you're gonna lag. The strongest people aren't the ones who never change their minds, they're the ones who can say, "I used to think that, but I learned something new." That's not weakness, that's growth with Wi-Fi. What's funny is that the more you cling to certainty, the more fragile you actually become. When your identity depends on being right, any challenge feels like an attack. But when your identity depends on learning, you can stay calm, curious, even playful. You don't have to take every disagreement personally because your sense of self isn't on the line. It's like the difference between saying, "I am my opinions," versus, "I have opinions." One traps you, the other frees you. The goal isn't to strip off all your armor and run around defenseless. It's to make your armor lighter and more flexible. You still protect yourself, but you can move, grow, and breathe while doing it. Let's take this into the real world. Think about businesses or leaders who refuse to rethink. Remember Blockbuster? They literally laughed at Netflix's idea of streaming movies. That laugh cost them everything. Or think about how some people resisted smartphones because they were just fine with flip phones. Now we can't even order coffee without an app. The ones who adapt survive. The ones who cling to their armor become outdated faster than dial-up internet. Grant reminds us that rethinking isn't just about personal growth, it's survival in a changing world. And on a personal level, rethinking is how you build better relationships. When you drop the need to always be right, conversations become less like battles and more like collaborations. Instead of trying to win, you start trying to understand. That's when growth happens, not just in your mind but in your connection with others. You realize people aren't enemies for disagreeing with you, they're mirrors showing you new angles. And sometimes those mirrors reflect something you didn't want to see but needed to. Here's the truth, being wrong is not the enemy. Staying wrong is. The armored mind tricks you into believing that changing your mind is a sign of weakness. But it's actually the greatest act of strength. It takes guts to admit, I was mistaken. That's courage. It means your identity isn't chained to your opinions, it's anchored in your willingness to learn. Every time you open your mind to rethinking, you loosen the straps on that heavy armor a little more. You get lighter, more agile, more human. So the next time someone challenges your belief and your inner knight grabs the sword, take a deep breath. Maybe lower the shield. Ask, what if they have a point? You might not change your mind right away, but even asking the question makes your mind stronger. Because strength doesn't come from being unbreakable, it comes from being flexible enough to bend without shattering. That's the power of an unarmored mind. It doesn't need to win every battle, it just keeps learning how to fight smarter. And let's be honest, in a world full of people shouting to prove they're right, being the one who's curious enough to rethink? That's not just rare, it's revolutionary. Imagine your brain as a stage and every day you've got 4 characters fighting for the spotlight. There's the preacher, the prosecutor, the politician, and hopefully somewhere in the back the scientist, the quiet one holding a clipboard waiting for everyone else to calm down. Adam Grant's idea here is genius and painfully accurate. Most of us spend our lives switching between those first 3 roles without even realizing it, and it's stopping us from actually learning anything new. It's like we're stuck in a never-ending courtroom drama, a Sunday sermon, and a campaign rally all rolled into one, while the poor scientist just wants to test a hypothesis in peace. Let's start with the preacher. Oh, you know this one. The preacher is that inner voice that thinks your beliefs are sacred, your opinions are holy truth, and anyone who disagrees just hasn't seen the light yet. When you're in preacher mode, you're not open to new ideas. You're delivering them, usually with the subtle humility of someone holding a megaphone. It's not necessarily bad to believe in something passionately, but the problem comes when passion turns into dogma. Like when your friend says they hate pineapple on pizza and you react like they've just insulted your entire family. The preacher doesn't want to debate, it wants to convert. It's all conviction, no curiosity. The downside? You might end up missing valuable lessons because you're too busy blessing your own viewpoint. Then there's the prosecutor. This one shows up when you're not preaching your own ideas, but tearing down someone else's. The prosecutor loves to argue. They live for that gotcha moment when they catch someone being wrong. Ever been in an argument where you stopped listening just so you could craft your next killer comeback? That's your prosecutor brain at work. You're not searching for truth, you're searching for victory. The scary part is, you might even win the argument but lose the bigger picture. Because being right in that moment doesn't mean you're actually correct. It just means you argued better. The prosecutor is great at defending your ego but terrible at helping you grow. It's like bringing a sword to a study group. Sure, you look powerful but you're not learning anything. And then there's the politician, the smooth talker of the bunch. The politician doesn't care about truth or logic, it just wants votes, approval, and applause. This is the version of you that changes opinions based on who's in the room. You might say one thing to your boss, another to your friends, and a third thing on social media. The politician is always campaigning, always trying to say what people want to hear. It's people-pleasing with a strategy. The problem is, the politician spends so much time trying to look good that it forgets to be good, or, more importantly, to think clearly. It sacrifices honesty for popularity, and while that might work in elections, it's a disaster for personal growth. You can't learn if you're afraid of losing approval. Now, don't get me wrong, each of these modes has its place. Preaching helps you stand up for your values. Prosecuting helps you challenge bad ideas. Politicking helps you connect with people. The problem is when those roles become your default setting. Because that's when you stop listening, stop learning, and start performing. And that's exactly why Adam Grant says we need to start thinking more like scientists. The scientist, the unsung hero of the mental world. The scientist doesn't care about being right, they care about getting it right. They form hypotheses, test them, and update their beliefs based on the evidence. No drama, no ego, just curiosity. When new data comes in, they don't panic or double down, they say, that's interesting, let's explore that. The scientist treats opinions like temporary experiments, not sacred commandments. Imagine if we all did that. You could actually change your mind without feeling like you've lost a part of yourself. You could say, I used to think this, but now I think that, and people wouldn't call you a hypocrite, they'd call you wise. Thinking like a scientist doesn't mean you need a lab coat or a microscope. It just means approaching life with curiosity instead of certainty. Instead of defending your beliefs, you test them. Instead of attacking others, you question together. Instead of campaigning for approval, you invite feedback. It's a mindset of continuous learning, not constant performing. When you adopt that mindset, being wrong isn't embarrassing, it's enlightening. You actually start to like being proven wrong because it means you've learned something new. And that's how real growth happens. But let's be real, being a scientist is hard, especially in a world where everyone's shouting their opinions like it's a contest for the loudest voice. We live in a culture that rewards confidence, not curiosity. People admire certainty even when it's misplaced. The more sure someone sounds, the more we tend to believe them, even if they're completely wrong. So it takes guts to say, I don't know, or I might be wrong. But ironically, those are the most powerful things you can say because they open the door to discovery. The scientist doesn't need to have all the answers, they just need better questions. Think about how refreshing it would be if more people acted like scientists. Imagine political debates where candidates said, that's a great point, I'll rethink my stance. Or relationships where someone said, I see what you mean, let me consider that. It would be weird at first, like hearing a cat bark, but it would change everything. Curiosity would replace defensiveness, listening would replace shouting, and progress would actually be possible. Even in your own life, you can spot moments when you're slipping into preacher, prosecutor, or politician mode. When you catch yourself preaching, ask, am I trying to understand or am I just trying to be right? When you're prosecuting, ask, do I want to learn something or just win this argument? And when you're politicking, ask, am I being authentic or am I just trying to impress people? Then take a breath, grab your inner lab coat and switch to scientist mode. Ask questions. Gather evidence. Be open to surprises. The beauty of the scientist mindset is that it frees you from the exhausting need to be perfect. You stop treating beliefs like trophies and start treating them like tools. You're not defending your identity, you're refining it. You're not chasing applause, you're chasing truth. And the more you think like a scientist, the less those other roles control you. You become less reactive, more thoughtful, and honestly more fun to talk to. Because let's face it, nobody likes arguing with a preacher, losing to a prosecutor, or being manipulated by a politician. But everyone loves a conversation with a scientist. They're curious, calm, and genuinely interested in understanding. And that's the secret sauce for not just intelligence, but connection. So next time your brain steps on that stage, let the scientist have the mic. The world doesn't need another preacher, prosecutor, or politician shouting their truth. It needs more scientists quietly asking, what if we're wrong? Because that question, humble as it sounds, is where all progress begins. Let's talk about doubt, the word that's been unfairly treated like the villain in every motivational poster ever. Never doubt yourself, they say, as if doubt is some sort of virus that kills confidence on contact. But Adam Grant flips that script and says, hold up, doubt isn't your enemy, it's your undercover ally. It's not the voice that says, you can't, it's the one whispering, are you sure that's the best way? And that question, my friend, has saved more people, companies, and rocket ships than blind confidence ever has. Doubt, when used right, isn't hesitation, it's calibration. It's the pause before the leap that keeps you from jumping straight into a cactus. Here's the problem. We live in a world that worships certainty. Everyone wants to look confident all the time, even when they're completely guessing. You've probably seen it. People who say things like, trust me, I've got this, with all the assurance of a game show contestant who just picked the wrong answer but doesn't know it yet. The truth is, overconfidence is like putting your car on cruise control during a storm. It feels smooth for a second, right before you skid off the road. Grant says that doubt, in contrast, is the mental seatbelt that keeps you safe when the road gets slippery. It doesn't stop you from moving forward, it just keeps you aware enough to steer. Think about NASA for a second. These are people launching humans into space, literally the highest stakes imaginable. You'd think they'd need total confidence to do that job, right? No. NASA engineers are professional doubters. They question everything. They double-check every bolt, every line of code, every trajectory. If a rocket blows up, they don't say, well, we were confident it'd work. They say, what did we miss? That mindset, using doubt as a diagnostic tool instead of an emotional meltdown, is why astronauts come back alive. It's not confidence that keeps them safe, it's constructive doubt wrapped in preparation. Now, contrast that with the disasters caused by people who refuse to doubt themselves. Remember the Titanic? The ship that was supposedly unsinkable? Yeah, that's what happens when confidence has no brakes. The engineers didn't plan for enough lifeboats because they believed their own hype. A little healthy doubt could have saved hundreds of lives. Or think of businesses like Blockbuster or Kodak. They were so sure they had the market cornered that they ignored warning signs and refused to rethink their strategies. Meanwhile, the doubtful innovators, like Netflix and digital photography pioneers, were out there saying, what if things are changing? Doubt made them curious and curiosity made them rich. But here's the thing, doubt can feel uncomfortable. Nobody likes questioning themselves. It's that itchy feeling in your brain that says, what if I'm wrong? And our egos hate that. We're wired to crave certainty because it feels safe and satisfying. It's why conspiracy theories and overconfident experts thrive. They give people the illusion of knowing everything. But certainty is a comfort blanket. Doubt is the gym membership. One makes you feel good, the other makes you stronger. Doubt builds mental flexibility. It keeps you humble enough to adapt when life throws you a curveball. Because spoiler alert, life will throw curveballs. A lot of them. Adam Grant points out that the smartest people aren't the ones who never doubt themselves, they're the ones who doubt at the right time. It's called confident humility. You trust your ability to figure things out, but you're open to the idea that you might not have all the answers yet. Think of it like being the captain of a ship. You trust yourself to steer, but you still check the map, listen to the weather report, and ask the crew for input. Confidence gets you moving, doubt keeps you correcting your course. Together, they make you unstoppable. Even entrepreneurs, those fearless business daredevils, use doubt as a secret weapon. Take Jeff Bezos. Before Amazon became the empire it is today, Bezos constantly questioned every decision. He wasn't paralyzed by doubt, he partnered with it. He'd ask, what would make this idea fail? And then design his plan around preventing those failures. Elon Musk, for all his wildness, does the same thing. He doubts, tests, and revises endlessly. It's not glamorous, but it's how innovation actually happens. Through a million tiny moments of, wait, let's double check that. Doubt isn't fear, it's intellectual honesty. The funny thing is, when you embrace doubt, you actually become more confident in the long run, because your confidence is grounded in reality, not fantasy. You've tested your ideas, challenged your assumptions, and survived a few oops that didn't work moments. That's real confidence, the kind that doesn't shatter the first time something goes wrong. It's like building muscle. The more resistance you face, the stronger you get. Blind faith gives you bravado, tested doubt gives you resilience. Let's take this idea to a personal level. Ever made a decision that felt totally right at the time only to regret it later? Maybe you rushed into a relationship, a purchase, or a career move because you didn't want to seem uncertain. You wanted to look decisive. But later you realize a small pause, a moment of healthy doubt, could have saved you a ton of trouble. Doubt gives you time to check your emotional math before you hit send, buy, or I do. It's not hesitation, it's wisdom taking a deep breath. The problem isn't doubting, it's ignoring your doubt. There's a difference between paralyzing doubt and productive doubt. Paralyzing doubt says, I'll never be good enough. Productive doubt says, I can be better, what can I improve? One shuts you down, the other fires you up. Grant wants us to use doubt like a scientist uses data, to test, refine, and learn. When you treat doubt as feedback instead of failure, it stops feeling like a weakness and starts feeling like a superpower. You become adaptable, analytical, and more open-minded. In a world that's constantly changing, those qualities matter way more than pretending to know everything. Even in leadership, doubt can be magnetic. Great leaders don't walk around acting like human encyclopedias. They admit when they don't know and ask their teams for input. It builds trust. People respect honesty more than arrogance. When a leader says, I might be wrong, what do you think? It invites collaboration and creativity. It's the opposite of fragile leadership, where everyone's too afraid to speak up. Doubt keeps organizations alive and innovative because it keeps them listening. So maybe it's time to stop treating doubt like a red flag and start seeing it as a compass. It's not there to stop you, it's there to guide you. When you feel uncertain, instead of panicking, try asking, what's this doubt trying to tell me? Maybe it's reminding you to gather more information. Maybe it's nudging you to prepare better. Or maybe it's simply asking you to stay humble enough to keep learning. Whatever the case, doubt is the spark that ignites curiosity, and curiosity is the gateway to wisdom. So the next time someone tells you to never doubt yourself, smile politely and think, thanks, but I'd rather stay smart than overconfident. Because the truth is, confidence might make you start the race, but doubt is what helps you win it without falling on your face. Doubt doesn't mean you're weak, it means you're paying attention. Imagine walking into work and actually being allowed to question your boss without feeling like you just signed your own resignation letter. Sounds like a fantasy, right? Well, Adam Grant would argue that it's not only possible, it's the secret sauce behind the most successful teams on the planet. Rethinking at work is all about creating an environment where speaking up isn't a career risk, it's a team superpower. Most workplaces, unfortunately, are more like medieval kingdoms than innovation labs. There's a hierarchy, there are unspoken rules, and the number one rule is, don't challenge the king, or in this case your manager, unless you want to find yourself exiled to the please schedule a meeting zone. But Grant shows us that teams who encourage questioning and feedback are the ones who actually thrive, innovate, and, surprise surprise, enjoy going to work. Here's the thing, many workplaces love to say they value open communication. You've seen the posters, we're a team. There are no bad ideas. But the moment you raise your hand and say, actually, I think this plan might backfire, everyone goes quiet, your manager gives you that not in front of the guests look, and suddenly your calendar is mysteriously filled with optional HR check-ins. That's because most organizations confuse agreement with loyalty. They think a good employee is someone who nods along and never rocks the boat. But in reality, that kind of silence is what sinks the ship. Grant argues that the healthiest teams are the ones where disagreement isn't just tolerated, it's encouraged. Because if no one's questioning anything, that's not teamwork. That's groupthink in business casual. Take Bridgewater Associates, for example. It's one of the most successful investment firms in the world, and its founder, Ray Dalio, built it around what he calls radical transparency. Which basically means, if you mess up, everyone's going to know about it. Sounds terrifying, right? But here's the twist, it actually works. Bridgewater has a culture where everyone, from interns to executives, is encouraged to challenge anyone else's ideas, as long as they do it respectfully and with evidence. You can tell your boss they're wrong, if you can back it up. The goal isn't to embarrass anyone, it's to make sure the best ideas win, not just the loudest voices. Imagine a meeting where people care more about solving problems than saving face. That's what rethinking looks like in action. Then there's Pixar, the animation powerhouse that brought us Toy Story, Finding Nemo, and Inside Out. You'd think a company that creative would just have geniuses who get everything right on the first try. No. Pixar's secret weapon is what they call brain trust meetings, regular sessions where directors show their work in progress and invite the team to tear it apart. Literally. Everyone in the room is encouraged to give blunt feedback, even if it means telling a director that a scene doesn't work or a story doesn't make sense. No sugarcoating, no ego, just honest conversation. It sounds harsh, but it's done with trust and shared purpose. They all want the same thing, a great movie. And because no one's afraid to question ideas, those movies end up being some of the best stories ever told. What makes these examples powerful is that both companies treat questioning not as rebellion, but as collaboration. When people feel safe to speak up, innovation naturally happens. Think about it, how many times have you had a great idea at work but stayed quiet because you didn't want to sound stupid? Or maybe you saw something going wrong but didn't say anything because, well, it wasn't your role. That's how mistakes snowball and creativity dies. When questioning is punished, people start working for approval instead of improvement. But when it's rewarded, people stop worrying about looking smart and start focusing on getting it right. Now, rethinking at work doesn't mean turning every meeting into a debate club. It's about creating psychological safety, a fancy term that basically means people don't feel like they'll get roasted or ridiculed for being honest. When a team feels safe, they don't just speak up more, they listen better too. They can say, I disagree without it turning into I dislike you. That's the magic zone where real trust is built. Because trust isn't just about liking each other, it's about believing that everyone's voice matters. Grant also points out something important. Leaders set the tone. If the boss never admits when they're wrong, no one else will either. The best leaders don't pretend to have all the answers. They model curiosity. They ask, "What do you think?" or "What am I missing?" That simple shift turns a room full of followers into a team of thinkers. When leaders invite dissent, they're not losing authority, they're gaining insight. And it shows strength, not weakness, when a manager can say, "Good point, I didn't see it that way." It tells the team, this is a place where learning matters more than ego. Of course, not every workplace gets this right. Some companies still operate like idea dictatorships. One wrong question and you're suddenly not a team player. But here's the irony, teams that avoid conflict don't stay peaceful, they just stay stuck. Silent meetings, fake smiles, and "we'll take it offline" become the company anthem. Meanwhile, the teams that question, debate, and rethink? They're the ones innovating, growing, and actually enjoying their jobs. Disagreement doesn't destroy teams, disrespect does. When questioning comes from a place of curiosity instead of criticism, it makes everyone better. Even outside big companies, this mindset applies to any group: friends, families, study teams, even creative collaborations. If you're surrounded by people who only tell you what you want to hear, you're not growing, you're stagnating. But if you have people who challenge you, who ask, "Are you sure that's the best idea?" or "What if we tried something else?" you're in the presence of gold. The discomfort of questioning is the price of progress. It might sting for a second, but it saves you from far bigger pain down the road. And yeah, rethinking at work takes practice. It's awkward at first to disagree openly. It's weird to give your boss feedback. But once it becomes normal, it's liberating. Meetings become more energetic, ideas get sharper, and mistakes turn into lessons instead of secrets. You stop hearing, "That's how we've always done it," and start hearing, "Let's see if there's a better way." That's when a workplace transforms from a routine to a living, breathing lab of improvement. So if you ever find yourself in a job where questioning is frowned upon, remember this: staying silent might keep you comfortable, but it won't keep you competitive. The most successful teams aren't the ones with the smartest people. They're the ones with the bravest people. The ones who speak up, rethink, and challenge the status quo without fear of losing face. Because progress doesn't come from perfect plans. It comes from people brave enough to say, "Let's rethink this." In the end, rethinking at work is really about turning your office, or your classroom, or your creative space into a place where ideas evolve instead of fossilize. It's realizing that questioning isn't chaos, it's how order improves. Pixar and Bridgewater figured that out early, and their success isn't magic, it's mindset. The goal isn't to always be right, it's to always be learning. You ever notice how most arguments feel less like a conversation and more like a cage fight? Two people circling each other, waiting for the knockout punch of "I told you so"? Yeah, that's because most of us don't argue to understand, we argue to win. We walk into debates with our minds made up and our egos dressed in full armor. But Adam Grant says there's a smarter, saner way to disagree, by swapping out ego for curiosity. Instead of trying to be the loudest voice in the room, you try to be the most curious one. Because the truth is, arguing with curiosity doesn't make you weak, it makes you wise. And way more likable too. Think about how arguments usually go. Someone says something you disagree with, like "pineapple belongs on pizza," and your brain goes into full courtroom mode. You're the lawyer, the judge, and the executioner, ready to present Exhibit A, the correct opinion. You stop listening and start loading your next verbal bullet. But that's not a conversation, that's verbal dodgeball. The goal of curiosity, on the other hand, isn't to prove you're right, it's to understand why the other person sees it differently. You're not trying to win, you're trying to learn. And ironically, that makes people far more likely to listen to you too. Grant explains that the best communicators, negotiators, teachers, and even leaders don't approach disagreement as a battle of wits. They treat it like a joint exploration. Instead of saying, "You're wrong," they say, "That's interesting, why do you think that?" It sounds simple, but that tiny shift changes the entire tone of the conversation. When you show genuine curiosity, people drop their guard. Their brains stop seeing you as a threat, and suddenly what could have been an argument turns into an exchange of ideas. It's like flipping a switch from combat mode to collaboration mode. Let's take negotiators as an example. The best ones don't walk into a room with a script, they walk in with questions. They listen more than they talk. They're not just trying to get what they want, they're trying to understand what the other side values, fears, or needs. Because once you know that, you can find common ground. Imagine you're negotiating your salary. If you walk in guns blazing with, "I deserve more money," you're setting up a fight. But if you say, "Can we talk about how my role impacts the company's goals?" Now you're inviting a discussion. You're showing curiosity about how your work fits into the bigger picture. And guess what? People respond to curiosity with cooperation, not defensiveness. Educators use the same strategy. The best teachers don't lecture, they ask. They know curiosity is contagious. When a student gives a wrong answer, a bad teacher says, "No, that's not right." A great teacher says, "That's an interesting take. What made you think that?" Suddenly, the student feels safe to think out loud. That's how real learning happens. Because when people aren't afraid of being wrong, they're more open to being right. Grant says curiosity turns disagreement into discovery. It's not, "I'm right, you're wrong." It's, "Let's figure this out together." Now, let's be real. Arguing with curiosity doesn't mean you have to agree with everyone or pretend you don't have strong opinions. It just means you care more about understanding than dominating. You can say, "I see your point," without saying, "I give up." You can ask questions without losing credibility. In fact, it often increases your credibility because it shows confidence. Only insecure people feel the need to bulldoze their way through every debate. Curious people know they don't lose anything by listening. They might even gain something, a new perspective, a better idea, or at least a more peaceful dinner table. Here's a funny thing Grant points out. People who argue with curiosity often end up persuading others more effectively. What? Because when you make someone feel heard, they actually start to hear you back. It's Psychology 101. When you attack someone's belief, their brain goes into defense mode. But when you ask them questions, real questions, they start thinking with you instead of against you. It's like sneaking vegetables into mac and cheese. You get the good stuff in there without anyone noticing. And if you've ever seen two stubborn people argue online, you know how badly this lesson is needed. Social media has turned debates into digital gladiator matches. Nobody's listening, everyone's yelling, and the goal isn't to learn, it's to get likes. But imagine if people actually replied to comments with curiosity. Instead of, "You're an idiot, what if we tried? That's a different perspective. Can you explain more?" Okay, it might not fix the internet overnight, but it's a start. Curiosity doesn't just make conversations better, it makes people better. Grant also shows that curiosity builds empathy. When you genuinely try to understand someone else's point of view, you start to see the world through their eyes. You may still disagree, but now it's grounded in respect. For example, a manager and an employee might disagree on a project deadline. Instead of saying, "You just don't get it," the manager could ask, "Can you walk me through your thinking?" Maybe the employee's dealing with a bottleneck no one else noticed. Boom, problem-solving replaces finger-pointing. That's the magic of curiosity. It turns tension into teamwork. And let's not forget relationships. If you've ever had an argument with someone you care about, you know how quickly things can go off the rails. You start with, "I just wish you'd listen," and 10 minutes later, you're both bringing up things from 2017. But if you pause and say, "Hey, I really want to understand your side, what am I missing here?" it changes everything. It disarms the situation. Curiosity doesn't just calm the argument, it strengthens the connection. It says, "I value us more than being right." Of course, being curious in an argument isn't always easy. Your ego will scream, "Defend yourself." But the best way to win an argument isn't to crush your opponent. It's to understand them so well that the truth becomes obvious to both of you. That's what great negotiators, educators, and leaders do. They don't just talk, they wonder. They don't enter a disagreement with a shield and sword. They show up with a magnifying glass and an open mind. So next time you find yourself in a heated debate, whether it's about politics, pizza toppings, or who left the lights on, try something different. Instead of rolling your eyes or raising your voice, raise your curiosity. Ask, "Why do you feel that way?" Or, "What makes you think that?" You might not change their mind immediately, but you'll change the energy in the room. And sometimes that's the most powerful shift of all. Arguing with curiosity doesn't mean you're soft. It means you're strong enough to admit you don't have all the answers, and wise enough to know no one else does either. It's not about being passive, it's about being purposeful. Because when you argue with curiosity, you're not trying to burn bridges, you're building them. And in a world where everyone's shouting, being the one who listens might just be the loudest move you can make. You ever look back at something you used to believe and think, "Wow, I was so sure I was right, how did I not see how wrong I was?" Yeah, welcome to being human. That's basically the heart of what Adam Grant means by unlearning and relearning. It's the ability to say, "Okay, maybe what I knew yesterday doesn't work today," and then actually doing something about it. It's not about being dumb, it's about being flexible. Because in a world that's changing faster than your phone updates, the real danger isn't what you don't know, it's what you refuse to stop knowing. Most of us grew up thinking that knowledge is power. You study hard, memorize facts, collect degrees, and boom, you're set for life. But Grant flips that idea on its head. He says knowledge is only powerful until it expires. And in today's world, knowledge has a shorter shelf life than milk. What worked 5 years ago might be useless now. Remember when everyone thought Facebook will never die? Or when we believed CDs were the peak of technology? Exactly. The problem isn't ignorance, it's overconfidence and outdated information. The people who thrive now aren't the ones who know the most, they're the ones who can let go the fastest. Unlearning is hard because it feels like throwing away something valuable. Our brains are basically hoarders of old ideas. We hold on to them like sentimental junk. But that belief got me this far. Yeah, and so did your childhood bike, but you're not riding that to work. Grant says the smartest people treat their knowledge like a smartphone app. It's always in update mode. They don't cling to old versions of reality, they hit refresh constantly. Every assumption, every opinion, every fact is treated as a temporary best guess. That phrase is key. It means, this is what I believe for now until new evidence comes along. That's intellectual humility, and it's a superpower. Take fast-changing industries like tech or medicine. The people who succeed there aren't the ones who learned something in college and then stopped questioning it. They're the ones who keep updating their mental software. Think about doctors, for example. A treatment that was considered gold standard 10 years ago might now be obsolete, or even harmful. The best doctors aren't the ones who say, this is how we've always done it. They're the ones who say, what's the latest research? Because the goal isn't to be right forever, it's to stay accurate now. The same goes for businesses. Blockbuster once thought people would always want to rent DVDs in stores. Kodak thought film would never die. Nokia thought they had the cell phone market locked down. And then, boom, the world changed and they didn't. What? Because they were experts in an outdated reality. They failed to unlearn. Meanwhile, companies like Netflix, Amazon, and Tesla thrive because they're constantly rethinking, reinventing, and relearning. They don't just ask, what's working? They ask, what's about to stop working? That question keeps them ahead of the curve while everyone else is playing catch-up. But let's bring this closer to home. Unlearning isn't just for CEOs or scientists, it's for all of us. Maybe you grew up thinking success means working non-stop, but now you realize burnout isn't a badge of honor. Or maybe you believed that being right mattered more than being kind, until life taught you otherwise. Unlearning is what happens when experience smacks your ego and says, hey buddy, time for an update. It's uncomfortable, but it's growth. Every time you admit, I was wrong, you're basically hitting the mental refresh button, and that's how wisdom gets downloaded. Grant also points out that unlearning isn't enough. You have to relearn. It's not just about tossing out old ideas, it's about replacing them with better ones. Imagine if you deleted old software but never installed the new version, you'd just be staring at a blank screen. Relearning is the process of building new mental models that fit the current world. It's about curiosity. It's about asking, what's true now, and what else might work? The people who master relearning are lifelong students. They don't see education as something that ends at graduation, they see it as a daily habit. One of Grant's most powerful insights is that the best thinkers treat opinions like hypotheses. Scientists don't fall in love with their theories, they test them, try to disprove them, and update them when new data comes in. Imagine if we all lived like that. Instead of saying, this is what I believe, we'd say, this is what I currently think based on what I know. That small shift could make arguments, workplaces, and even politics a whole lot saner. Because when you stop clinging to being right, you start chasing what's real. Now, don't get me wrong, unlearning isn't comfortable. It's messy. It means admitting that some of your beliefs, habits, or methods might be outdated. It's like realizing you've been using the wrong charger for your brain this whole time. And because our identity is often tied to what we know, letting go of old ideas can feel like losing a piece of ourselves. But here's the catch. The more rigid your identity, the more fragile your success. The more flexible your thinking, the more unstoppable you become. Grant gives the example of top performers who don't see their expertise as permanent. They're humble enough to admit, I could be wrong, and curious enough to ask, what else can I learn? They approach problems like detectives, not judges. They don't care about being smart, they care about getting smarter. And that's the key difference between someone who peaks early and someone who keeps evolving. The ones who never stop learning aren't the ones who know it all, they're the ones who know how to question it all. Unlearning and relearning also apply to personal growth. Maybe you've had to unlearn toxic habits, like thinking vulnerability is weakness, or believing you have to have everything figured out by 25. Relearning means discovering that asking for help shows strength, or that success looks different for everyone. It's about updating your emotional software as much as your intellectual one. Because let's face it, sometimes the hardest things to unlearn aren't facts, they're fears. In everyday life, unlearning looks like being open to change. It's saying, I used to think this way, but I've learned something new. It's being willing to rewrite your story instead of clinging to the old chapters. And when you do that, you stop seeing change as a threat and start seeing it as a teacher. Every new challenge becomes a chance to evolve, not an attack on your identity. So how do you actually practice this? Start small. The next time you catch yourself saying, that's just how it is, pause. Ask yourself, is that still true? Read something that challenges your beliefs. Talk to people who see the world differently. And most importantly, be okay with not having all the answers. Because in a world that never stops changing, certainty is the slowest form of death. Curiosity, on the other hand, keeps you alive. The beauty of unlearning and relearning is that it keeps you adaptable. It turns your mind into a living thing, flexible, curious, and resilient. It's what lets you thrive in chaos instead of being crushed by it. The truth is, the smartest people aren't the ones with the most knowledge. They're the ones with the most updated knowledge. So don't be afraid to let go of yesterday's truths. The world doesn't stand still, and neither should your thinking.